Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. Kurt Russell. To millions, he's the man who never misses the shot, never flinches when danger comes, never lets you see him break. The action hero with the steel gaze and the easy grin. The man who could step into any role and make it his own. But the truth? The truth is, Kurt Russell's story has always been about something far deeper than the characters on screen. It's about a boy who dreamed of a life far from the sound of camera shutters. A boy whose dreams were tied not to movie scripts, but to the crack of a bat under summer skies. A boy who was about to find out how fast the game of life can change. Kurt Vogel Russell was born on March 17, 1951, in Springfield, Massachusetts, to Bing and Louise Russell. His father was an actor, but before that, he was a ball player. The kind of man who knew the smell of dust in a baseball diamond, who knew that winning wasn't just talent, it was heart. Kurt grew up breathing that same air when other kids were. Thinking about movie stars, Kurt was thinking about batting averages. He had one vision for his future: Major League Baseball. Hollywood. That wasn't the plan. Not even close. But fate. Fate has a way of bending the map. One day, as a boy, he stepped in front of a camera. It wasn't because he wanted to be a star. It was because it was something fun to do. A little side trip, a way to earn some money, a chance to see something new. What he didn't know was that the lens that day was about to follow him for the rest of his life. By the age of 11, he was showing up in television roles. By 13, he was working for Disney. They saw the boyish charm, the quick smile, the way he could make an audience lean in. And just like that, Kurt Russell, the actor, was born, but acting was never meant to replace his real dream. He still practiced every day, still trained for baseball as if the big leagues were waiting just around the corner. And for a while, it looked like they might be. In the early 70s, Kurt stepped away from the screen to focus on the sport he loved. He played in the minors, fast, sharp, and full of drive. He was a switch-hitting second baseman, strong in the field, reliable at the plate. People started to talk. Maybe he had the talent to go all the way. But then came the moment that would change everything. One game. One play. One instant. He was turning a double play when it happened. A collision at second base. The runner came in hard. Kurt fell. There was a sharp pain in his shoulder, so deep it made the edges of his vision blur. It wasn't just a bruise. It wasn't just soreness. It was the end. A torn rotator cuff. The kind of injury that, back then, could destroy a baseball career completely. And for Kurt, it did. Just like that, the dream that had lived inside him for as long as he could remember was gone. He didn't cry in public. He didn't make a scene. But inside, he was shattered. When you're young, you think you'll have time to do everything you want. Then one day, time makes a choice for you. And so, in the silence that followed, acting became more than a side job. It became survival. At first, it was just a way to fill the space. But soon, he began to see what he could do with it. He wasn't just the smiling Disney kid anymore. He could be something else. Someone else. The transformation began slowly. Then all at once he took on darker roles. More complex men. In 1979, he played Elvis Presley in a TV biopic that stunned critics and audiences alike. It was raw, honest. And for the first time, people saw Kurt Russell not just as an actor, but as a force. Then came the 80s, a decade that would change everything. He became Snake Plissken in Escape from New York, the ultimate antihero, a man the audience shouldn't root for, but somehow couldn't turn away from. He braved alien terror in The Thing. He became a gunslinger in Tombstone. He danced between genres, from action to comedy to romance, proving that no one could put him in a box. But even with the fame, even with the success, there were battles no audience could see. There were times when the work dried up. Times when critics doubted him. Times when the weight of expectation threatened to crush him. He had to fight not just for roles, but for the belief in himself. And then there was love. In 1983, on the set of Swing Shift, he met Goldie Hawn. Sparks didn't just fly, they set the sky on fire. But this wasn't the kind of Hollywood romance you read about in magazines. This was real, messy, human. They blended their families, weathered storms, built something that has lasted more than 40 years without ever walking down an aisle. Through it all, Kurt stayed grounded. He never chased the spotlight. He let the work speak. He didn't need scandals or headlines to stay relevant. He had craft. He had grit. He had the kind of presence that doesn't fade. But here's the truth. The movies, the roles, the fame, that's not the story. The real story is the man behind it all. The man who lost his first love, picked himself up, and built an entirely new life from the pieces. The man who proved that sometimes the greatest victories come after your biggest defeat. Hollywood will remember him for Snake Plissken 4. Wyatt Earp for the swagger. But the truth? The truth is Kurt Russell's real story isn't about action heroes. It's about a boy who lost his dream, a man who lost more than the world will ever know, and somehow found the strength to keep standing, and maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest role he ever played. Because it's easy to stand tall when the crowd is cheering. It's easy to feel strong when the scoreboard says you're winning. Everyone loves you when you're on top, when your name is in lights, when the applause feels endless. But life isn't a movie, and the high points don't last forever. What happens when the cheers fade? When the cameras turn away? When the roles that once defined you no longer come, and the silence of your own thoughts is louder than any audience could ever be? That's when the real test begins. That's when the world strips away the image and asks you, without mercy, who are you without all of this? Kurt Russell learned that answer the hard way. He started young, a bright-eyed boy with dreams far bigger than his years. He wasn't just talented, he was magnetic. People wanted to watch him. They wanted to root for him. Hollywood saw him as a golden kid. But here's the thing about golden kids. People forget they're still just kids. And kids break point one moment. He was being celebrated. The next, life was throwing punches he didn't see coming. It wasn't just about career struggles. It was about personal storms that no one on the outside could fully understand. The kind that hit you quietly, in the moments between work, when you're left alone with thoughts you don't want to face. That it's easy to play a hero on screen. It's another thing entirely to be won when there's no script, no director, no second take. When you lose things that matter more than fame, when the weight on your shoulders feels too heavy to carry, you find out fast what you're really made of. Kurt didn't just stand back up. He chose to. Over and over. Some days, that meant forcing himself into the next audition. Other days, it meant facing grief and loss that the tabloids would never fully capture. It meant putting one foot in front of the other when every part of him wanted to stay down. Because strength isn't loud. It's not always about a comeback montage or a triumphant headline. Sometimes it's silent. It's choosing to keep going when no one's watching. It's holding yourself together when it would be easier to fall apart. And here's the truth. Most people don't see that side of Kurt Russell. They remember Snake Plissken. They remember Wyatt Earp. They remember the swagger, the grit, the action hero. But the man behind those roles? He's someone who's fought battles far harder than anything in a script. There's a certain kind of courage in refusing to let your pain define you. In taking hit after hit, and still showing up for the people you love. In rebuilding yourself, even when the world thinks you don't need to. That's the role Kurt Russell didn't audition for, but it may be the most important one he's ever played. Because in the quiet moments, when the applause is gone, and all that's left is the echo of your own heartbeat, that's when you discover the truth about yourself. When the set is empty, when the makeup is off, when the script is closed at no cameras, at no costumes, no lines to hide behind. Just you. And the silence. Most people never think about those moments. They see the glamour, the premieres, the flashbulbs. They see the smiles, the witty talk show banter, the perfect movie posters. But they don't see the stillness afterward. They don't see the weight a man carries when the doors close and the world stops looking. And Kurt Russell has carried that weight. You see, for every red carpet he's walked, there's been a door he's walked through alone. For every blockbuster he's made, there's been a night where the silence felt louder than the applause ever could. It's easy to be strong when you're everyone's hero, but it's harder when the role ends, and you're just a man again. Kurt's truth is this: he's still standing. But that truth was earned. It wasn't handed to him. That he knew success early. He knew the taste of victory before most kids even graduate high school. Hollywood had him pegged as a golden boy, the charming young face who could do it all. And for a while, it seemed like he could. But life doesn't play by scripts. There were roles he fought for and didn't get. Dreams that seemed certain, then slipped away. People he thought would always be there, who weren't. And in those moments, no one was watching. No one was applauding that. That's when life does its real work. In the shadows. Because it's not the fight scenes, the stunts, or the perfect lines that make you who you are. It's the quiet choices you make when no one else is there to see them. Kurt has had to make those choices. Walk away from things that no longer served him. Hold on to the people and values that did. Reinvent himself when the world was ready to move on. And make no mistake, the world always moves on. One day, you're on every magazine cover. The next, there's a new face, a new star, a new next big thing. The industry can be merciless like that. But Kurt, he didn't let it break him. He knew who he was before the fame, and he refused to let the fame tell him otherwise. That doesn't mean it was easy. There were seasons when the offers slowed down. Seasons when he had to fight to remind people that he still had something to say, something to give. And the hardest part? You can't fight those battles in public. You fight them alone. You fight them in your own head, in your own heart, in those moments when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if the best is already behind you. But Kurt Russell didn't just survive those nights. He used them. He let them carve him into someone stronger, someone sharper, someone who could take a hit and still smile when he got back up. Because that's the thing about resilience. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not a Hollywood climax. Resilience is quiet. Resilience is stubborn. Resilience is getting up on a Tuesday morning, looking in the mirror and saying, "Not yet. I'm not done yet." Kurt's not done. He's lived through the changes in Hollywood, in the world, in himself, and somehow he's kept his center. That's rare. That's worth something. Maybe the world remembers him for Snake Plissken, for Wyatt Earp, for Captain Ron, for all those swaggering heroes. But the real story? The real story is that when the applause died down, when the roles changed, when the spotlight shifted, he stayed true. And that's harder than any stunt, because every career has its storms. Every life has its losses. The question is, who? Are you when the storm clears? What's left standing? For Kurt Russell, what's left is a man who knows himself. A man who's seen success and heartbreak and everything in between, and has learned not to be defined by either. In a world obsessed with what's next and who's bigger, Kurt has learned the quiet power of staying. Staying in the fight, staying in the game, staying himself. And maybe that's why his story matters. Because it's not just about Hollywood. It's not just about acting. It's about life. It's about all of us, standing in those quiet rooms, with nothing but our own heartbeat, asking ourselves if we've still got something left to give. Kurt's answer? Yes. Always yes. And maybe that's the lesson. Not just for him, but for anyone who's been knocked down more times than they can count. The roles change, the years pass, the cameras stop rolling, the world keeps spinning, but if you can stand up just one more time then you fall, you're still in the game. You're still breathing. You're still you. Because life doesn't measure you by the victories when everything's going your way. It measures you in those quiet, brutal moments when you're alone. No spotlight. No applause. No one watching to see if you'll make it. That's when you learn the truth about yourself. And the truth for Kurt Russell? He's not just an actor. He's a fighter. It's easy to think of him as the charming, unshakable star. The man who could slip into any role, from the gunslinger to the hero, from the man who saves the day to the man who loses everything. But behind those roles was a life that had its own battles. A life that didn't always give him a script to follow. There were the career doubts, the moments when the phone didn't ring, when the industry seemed to look past him. There were the personal storms, the private heartbreaks, the times he could have walked away from it all. But he didn't, because some people are born to chase the light. Others are built to survive the dark. Kurt was both. The truth is, the lights will go out. The crowd will go home. The cheering will fade into memory. And then it's just you, in that empty space, asking yourself if you've got one more round in you. For Kurt, the answer was always yes. Yes to getting up. Yes to moving forward. Yes to facing the day, even when the day didn't seem worth facing. It's not about never falling. No one escapes that. It's about refusing to let the fall be the final chapter. And in that, Kurt Russell has written a story that no critic can touch. Because here's the thing. You don't have to be an actor to live this truth. You don't need a stage or a screen. Every one of us will face our own version of the moment when the curtain falls and the room goes quiet. That's life's way of asking, who are you when there's no one to perform for? Kurt answered. And he answered with his whole life. So if you're in your own quiet moment now, if the lights have gone out and you can only hear your own breathing, remember this. You're not out of the fight unless you decide you are. Kurt Russell didn't. And maybe, just maybe, you won't either. That if they could survive that and still rise, maybe you can too.